what's up, YouTube? This is a Convicts perspective with your big homie Rojo.
This is Flacco right back at you. Please hit the like and subscribe button. So this is part two. We're going to be discussing about the hostile relationship that we've had between the Norteños and the whites in the prison system. And I'm going to discuss a couple incidents that I personally either was involved in or had directives, orders to take action against other white inmates while I was in prison. And I'm also going to evolve as far as how the whites' political structure has changed from the 80s and 90s, like I discussed, to where they were kind of in disarray and they had a whole different style, basically. You know, you didn't have all these skinheads and all these sub-factions that started to sprout up to like around the late 90s and 2000s. So, like I said before, I had more incidents with the whites than I did with Sureños behind the walls. And I can take you back to Solano State Prison, which is one of the second riots that I was involved in. So back then we used to have a certain policy, and this probably is still the same policy that we had to this day, maybe. I don't know, I'm not on the main line these days, but back then we used to have different parts of the yard to where, okay, this side of the yard is, in Solano you had building 4, 5, and 6 on the one yard, which was a level 3 yard. This is where all the Norteños and blacks would kick it. Then on the 1, 2, 3, you had all the whites and Sureños, and even the others were on that side. And on both sides, there was neutral areas for bar work, because on our side, we had all the bar work, and this is where we had to understand that they could work out, but they couldn't post up. So there was an incident that happened, I think it was Christmas Eve in the 90s, where a couple white boys were there, individual Spider, Tommy Guns, and some other cat were just posted up. And I believe they were drunk or drinking. And so what we did was, it was our policy, right? I don't think I was cellies with the squad leader at that time, but my boy Rascal, he held a position out there in the yard that all the ones that were leadership position, they were basically close custody at that time. They weren't able to be released during night guard. So it was his responsibility. If we seen any whites or southerners that were posted up on our side, we were supposed to politically address them diplomatically and say, look, this is the understanding, you can't be posting up on this yard. So we approached them, me and Rascal, and we basically told him, like, Rascal was telling him that, look, this is the understanding, you guys can't be posted up over here. It's viewed as a potential threat. This is the political understanding that we have between both factions. And one of them started mouthing off towards us, saying that, well, what about the blacks? What about the blacks? And there was a few civilian Africanos on the yard that were not affiliated. They weren't Kumi, they weren't Crips, they weren't Bloods, because we had a little bit of everything there on that yard. We had the 415, there was an individual named Shitty that was running the yard. There was the LA Crip car, which you had like Green Eyes and Titon, one from Long Beach, one from Compton. Then you had the Sacramento Bloods were pretty deep on that yard. You know what I mean? I remember Kool-Aid. And so you also had the regular civilian blacks, and they would sometimes go around that side of the yard and post up or play basketball, and you know, but that wasn't within in our political spectrum to intervene. We don't speak for those individuals, and that's what we told them. So as this was going on, there was an individual named Chapo from Broderick, and at this time in Solano, we were going through a big transition. There was a degenerate that was running the yard named Tito from Stockton, who was basically a Tecato, right? I mean, I witnessed this dude shooting up dope with a Sacramaniac named Hot Rod in the same cell together. You know, he was supposed to be a Nuestra Familia member, and you know, used to speak about how he had hits and all this stuff, and basically built a wall around himself on that yard. And little was known to us that this individual had been deemed no good in 1996 when he left Tracy. So he had a whole lot of degenerate motives. And so Chops was there. Like I said, he was trying to get at the young brothers on the yard about restructuring everything, and he was trying to work with other individuals there, like DK from San Rafael, and Rascal, and Scooter from Yuba City, and you know, a few brothers that were on the yard. And they started posting up around these individuals, right? Boom, 4 here, 4 here, 4 here, like they surrounded these woods. So these woods immediately sensed the threat. They took off. About 5 minutes later, you start seeing about 25, 30 woods start walking across the yard towards our area. Now, we were more posted by building 5 and 6. So the first line of defense was the Africanos. They jumped up real quick and started rushing towards the white boys, like, what's going on here? And immediately they slammed the yard down, held out of Central Complex about, I swear to God, I don't know how they did it so fast. There was about 30, 40 COs that just rushed the yard. And at that time, anybody understands that night yard, you wouldn't have like 500 people in the yard or 400 people in the yard. You'd have maybe 150. So they were able to maintain and slam the yard real quick, right? One of these white dudes yelled, "Effing Buster," right? So the next day at yard, right, when we come out, we all come out in our boots. Usually we should do our counts, and we would realize, okay, there's like, on an average Tuesday or whatever, there'd be like maybe 40 homeboys on the yard, maybe like 30 whites, whatever it would be in the morning. That morning, we ended up doing our count. There was about 120 of us, I believe, maybe more or less, I don't really remember, and about maybe 100 of them. So I don't know what was transpiring, but I was told that the whites were going to give up the individual that called us busters, right, and allow us to deal with him. And they had asked me if I was willing to stab this dude. So I said, yeah, I was willing to stab him. I'm trying to continue to, put in whatever work for the cause and struggle. Like I was striving to the fullest and ready to put my life on the line. And eventually we get slammed down on some type of lockdown. I think a bullet came up missing. And so the whole issue died down. And when we came out, like, Tito was trying to run drag. He basically didn't want to kick nothing out, because you kick off a riot, it's gonna stop the dope from coming in. And this individual was doing heroin on a daily basis, and there was a lot of dope that was coming in through Solano. So I think it was January 21st. I forgot what year it was, but I think 99 or 98. So me and the brother Rascal at night, we used to always hang out, and I used to walk with him so we could do the patrols. And there's a certain chain of command procedure that we have, that every unlock we get the DRs, which is the daily reports, which is how many ends do you have in the building, how many Southerners, any new arrivals, just any type of information. That's part of our bylaw structure to keep track of all enemies behind enemy lines at all times. So we need to know what's going on, and we try to process this information to where we can make decisions if there's any potential threat. Like, for instance, if a yard every day, you have 40 Sureños on the yard every morning, and they're out there casually doing their thing, playing handball, and all of a sudden there's 70 of them out there and they have boots. We're doing those counts and doing our DRs. We can sit there and say, okay, there's a threat. They're either going to get off on us or someone else. So this is how we process information. So what lo and behold to us is we were slipping, because we were doing the same thing every night. We were going to building 2, which at that time was a hot med building, and we had certain homeboys in there. So we'd go to the door every night, and knock on it to get the DRs. Then we would go to building 1, which was close custody, which meant it was all lifers, so they couldn't come out to night yard no more. That was a new CDC implementation that was being put forth. So we were doing this every day, and walking on side 1 and 2 yard, right? You have about 20, 30 Sureños, 30 whites every night, so you have enemies everywhere. So, but we have to do what we have to do to take care of business. So me and Rascal are walking, and out of nowhere, these two white dudes, man, one of them was big, man. The one that hit me was about how big I am now, and I'm 6'5", 250. But at that time, I was a little bit shorter for some reason. I was 6'2", and probably weighed about 150, doing all them burpees. So this dude, they just took flight on us, and as soon as I got hit, man, I just dropped to my knee. And every time I tried to get up, I got hit, bam, dropped. After I got dropped the 3rd time, I ended up doing a somersault backwards, and I eventually got on my feet, and I started throwing punches, man. And I was so dazed, man. These punches were like Jello punches, bro. You know what I mean? And I had my nose broke. The first thing the SEALs told me is they asked me if I was hit anywhere, because there was blood all over me. And I know a lot of viewers, when you hear us tell stories about when we handle our business and we're savages and put in work and beat this dude up or kick in this door, hey, we're going to take our losses too. And that time, man, these dudes gave us the business, man. And so that was my first incident, as far as, besides the time when I sliced that dude from neck to neck. This was my second issue, as far as it was a basically small melee that happened on the facility.
Yeah, we got these stories about how, we have funk with these people, and it's worse than ours with the Southerners, and just in our personal experiences or whatnot, man. But there's also been times too where we've got along well with them, like I mentioned in the previous episode about an incident in Quinton where it was ordered that 14 of them were to be removed with a piece. And it so happens that a couple years later, I end up back on another term, and one of the white dudes that had the keys to the yard, well, there was two of them. There was this dude named Short Dog, and there was this dude named Big Jim. And I don't remember where they were out of, but they were Bay Area dudes, and they were around during that initial conflict. And I don't remember if it was one of them that had got at the homeboy and asked him to squash the problems, but they were there. I don't know if they were running the yard or not. But anyway, to make a long story short, man, our relationship with them in 90, man, it was 97 or 98. I happened to have the keys for San Quentin at the time. It was really good, man. They would hit, they'd hit a lot of weed, you know what I mean? And they'd hit a lot of crank. And the dude Short Dog, man, he would break us off like we were his own people. Me in particular. I don't think he was doing it for anybody else, but he knew who I was. So, man, he'd always go out of his way to be like, hey, you want some of this? You want some of that? And I would get it. And we don't use. I mean, we could smoke some weed. You know what I mean? That's not looked upon disfavorably, but man, he'd kick us down. I don't know what he was getting, but it must have been something cool, man, because it wasn't nothing for him to, once a month or so to shoot us like a teenth or a ball of crystal, and a nice, good clavo Yesca, you know what I mean? And that's just, he don't owe us nothing, you know what I mean? And, we're not really supposed to have that kind of relationship, man, but, as like basically a token of good faith, like, hey, man, we don't want no problems with you guys. There's no reason for us to be beefing right now. And there's not, when incidents happen, they happen. But like, just to have beef with somebody, this gets back to what I was saying about there's a lot of different groups of of whites. And these are just regular woods, so they don't necessarily always have a problem with Northerners per se. I mean, like I said, there's some good white dudes, man. And this dude would, make it a point to, he'd hit me up on the tier with my tier name, and he'd be like, hey, I got a one time for you, And man, he shot me something, and at first I was nervous. I'm like, what the why are you sending me this? You know what I mean? I just said gracias, you know what I mean? But the amount, it seems insignificant, but in prison, man, you can multiply everything by 10 times. A leño on the streets, some Yesca, it's gonna cost you $2, for a pre-roll or something. In prison, man, a pinner, dude, is gonna cost you some money. And even more so with the Chris. Especially, we're not allowed to use Chris. And on the streets, while I didn't run like a particularly hard program about what you do and don't do with your own personal body, in prison, I can't tolerate that because I have people watching, and if they see, hey, Rojo was letting them get spun out, and it wouldn't be good for me, so, but man, not all experiences with them dudes have been bad. I've met some cool NLRs, you know what I mean? Even though those are like, basically, in my history, was our worst enemy because all the ABs were locked down. The NLR still had some wiggle room. So, I mean, it was always, man, my worst enemies were always the AB associates or the Bulldogs, you know what I mean? And it was just on site with them. Like, we've talked about in past videos about the door policy in Pelican Bay. Man, the door policy extended between us and the MA. If the doors open when one of them white boys were out, we're going to get them. If the door opened when one of them Bulldogs is out, we're going to get them. Or any other, non-affiliated individual that was disrespected. So the hostilities, we made that door policy with the MA, which is, historically our main enemy. But, when that door policy popped out, man, if an AB was on the tier, we were going to get them. If an NLR was on the tier, we were going to get them, or any one of their super sympathizers or cellies. Because, if you're their celly, you're going to get off with them, or they're going to kill you, man. Because I was in there in, man, I want to say it was 96, man. I was in C12, A, B, C, D, D. I was in C12 D pod, and I was in there with Corny and Lucho and Boxer from Selma, some major dudes. And, man, right in the pod next to us, AB killed his celly, who was an NLR, man. His name was, I want to say the NLR dude was Spun, and the AB guy was Steve Oliveris, man. And he had strangled him and, took a couple of his meals, left him in the cell. And then...
Did I?
I think that's what his nickname was. But, yeah, I think you're right. But, he the reason they started the 4 o'clock count was because of this situation right here, where he left the dude in the cell for multiple hours, got like two, he doubled up on 2 meals. And then when it was like shower time or whatnot, he pulls the NLR dude out, sits him in the middle of the little common area, and tells the tower that his celly's not feeling good. You know what I mean? This dude's dead, you know? And so the FBI comes in and they're interviewing us like, man, first of all, we're not going to say nothing. Second of all, we don't know their business. We're not in their cell. There wasn't no noise. You know what I mean? We're not going to tell you nothing anyway. But I think the point of this story is, man, going along with their separate groups, man. And those are the ones that are problems. The AB's problems. You know what I mean? If you see them on the tier and it's on, they're coming for you. They're with the business. You know, you see all these stories on all these shows about ABs are butchering people. They are. It's the truth. They're right up there with us and the MA. They're not playing. You know what I mean? But it's not always bad with all the different whites, man. I mean, there's a lot of them that are cool, man. They'll tell you stuff, you know, because, you know, they'll have like little, you know, misunderstandings amongst their different little groups too, and they'll be like, hey, well, that dude's the one who's dictating their whole show, and, you know, they'll just give us information, man. So it's nothing against white dudes, man, in particular, man, but when they get to them really deep politics where we know you hate us, man, we gotta hate you too, brother.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, like I was talking about with these whites, right? Like I said, the AB kind of had lost a lot of stronghold on these yards because the NLR was doing a little bit of their bidding, but then they had their conflict, and basically they had stragglers out there. A lot of them were AB dropouts on these yards or old dope fiends, and out of nowhere, around 2000, you've seen a whole different program change. And like I said, the AB did the smartest thing they could do. All these small little splinter groups, wolf packs, P9, Sacramaniacs, Fame, they started to recruit individuals as AB members, you know, in the shoe while they were up in the bay, and they would sanction these guys to go out to these main lines and reestablish it. And so you started having a big change where you had these regular woods that were just going in there with long hair, and like I said earlier, next thing you know, you had a bunch of skinheads and a bunch of different groups. And I started to notice that their whole structure, it changed. They went from having a lax program to where they're out there in their shower shoes and they're out there playing tennis and trying to get a tan on, right? To now they're pushing politics. You know, they're having more internal politics within their people, and they're cleaning their own house.
Yeah, their program became strikingly like ours. You know, we were always the ones from way back in the days who, at the butt crack of dawn, our mattresses rolled up, our shoes are on. You know, we're taking notes, we're peeping out everything that goes on. And when I first came to prison, man, the white boys were asleep until whenever they felt like getting up, and their yard wasn't mandatory. And then, you know, toward the end of my time, you know, in the 2000s, man, they're up, mattress rolled up, studying, you know, trying to do the same level of difficulty, you know, machines, which, you know, that's what we call our exercise, the machina, or the machine. You know, they're emulating. I'm not saying that they stole it from us or nothing like that, because we're not the only ones who do that. I mean, we kind of originated it, don't get it wrong. But man, the white dudes, man, they became just as militant as we are. Yes. toward the end of my career. And
there started to be a little bit of change. Okay, I was in Santa Clara County Jail. I've mentioned this before, Little Max, with the Carnals Chuco and Huicho. And that AB member that's pretty well known, the one that got his nuts shut off, Buzzard, he's an OAB. So when he came through there, we were trying to pry information, because at that time we had heard that the MA and AB had got into an adjustment center in San Quentin, and we wanted more details, and we wanted to see where they were at as far as within that war. I wasn't in no position to pry any information, because you basically had a future NF general that was right there, and if anybody's going to conduct that type of communication with an AB member, it's going to be that individual. So we were trying to get classification to move them down there close to us, you know, because we were in a special corridor called Little Max, which is only 4 cells, and it was all of us were considered high power in that county jail. So lo and behold, I ended up going to Corcoran Shoe, and an NF filter came out, and all this I was able to confirm later from several different white individuals. And the filter said that the MA and AB have currently been at war. There's been a dispute that happened in AC where there's been bloodshed on both sides, and they had been receiving reports from other level 4 facilities that whites and Sureños were getting off because of this incident, and that we were told that we were supposed to stay out of this war. We weren't supposed to side one way or another, and basically let them have whatever's going to happen between them, let it happen. So that came out, and I started talking to other whites, and I heard the same story from each one of them, that they got tired of the Sureños trying to push up on them and enforce their policies and tell them what they needed to do. And so it was basically they were separating themselves from the Sureños. Yeah, they would program in the same yard as far as, whites over here, Sureños out here, but it was no longer being dictated by the Sureños, like what type of politics were occurring. They kind of separated themselves the same way the Northerners and blacks separated themselves to where, yeah, we program on the same yard, we'll share the showers and all that, but there's no more united front. Everybody started to transcend to their own little collective. And at that time, like I said, the AB started to pull these different factions. And I had an incident to where I was in DVI in 2006, and many of you probably already know about the situation because it was a big scenario. And there was an incident to where in Solano, skinheads and the homeboys got off. It was a big riot. I think one of the homies got thrown off a tier or something like that. I may be wrong, so if anybody knows about this situation, please put it in the comments. But at that time, I got a different filter coming from different individuals from the Bay about Wolfpack skinheads and P9s and all these individuals. Basically, they were being considered junior ABs because they were doing the ABs work on these main lines. And there was a lot of Wolfpacks that were in DVI at that time. And a couple high-ranking members came through, Jeremy Jones, an individual from Livermore, and a Bear, and a couple other ones. And there's a place called L2, which is AdSeg Overflow. So a white dude was getting kicked out, and he just got there, and he didn't know, and he seen another white dude, so he basically tried to tell him, hey, can you get this kite to this other person or something like that. So the white boy sent a kite to the homie, right? And in the kite, he asks him to give him to some other individual. But us, we're going to screen this kite. So we ended up screening this kite, and they were plotting on moving on the homeboys in DVI based on what happened in Solano. So when I got this, the homeboy came from L2 to K-Wing, and I screened the filter, and I had to make a decision. Now I already had a little bit long history of having issues with the white boys, especially the incident in Solano, to where the homeboys didn't even take any counterattack measures afterwards. So when I seen this, I had to make a decision, and I was also told that we needed to push those lines. And these dudes were considered junior ABs, and with this missive, I said, okay, I'm taking these individuals as a threat. And at that time, I had just reestablished that whole facility. The person that was left in charge, he did not know what he was doing. There was no communication. I had to restructure the whole facility, change all the codes, change who was in position. And I had my first directives, out there. I had to have 2 people report that were allegedly claiming that they were part of a regiment, and they were no part of no regiment. So I had to have them report to the whole, which I think it was Little Man from Patterson, right? And so my directives at that time was that we were to remove all wolf packs by bloodshed with a weapon piece, not no tomahawk or nothing like that. So we're in the hole. About a week after I sent those directives out, you hear the alarms going crazy, and the cops are talking about the whites and Northerners got off, and there was this young white boy on the tier, man, that used to always kind of be disrespectful and loud, and he started yelling to the wood Jesse Turner from Tracy out there on the tier, talking about, yeah, I told you we're going to get these guys. And he had just came from Solano. I guess the homies gave him the business, so he's woofing all this stuff, right? Thinking that the whites got off on us, the wolf packs. But what ended up happening was, it was us. We sliced them up. Not sliced them up, we put holes up in these guys. And that was the war that we had declared with all wolf packs. And see, what people don't realize is the directives that I gave out on that was to remove all wolf packs by bloodshed. We weren't worried about the rest of the whites, whether it was the Butte County or the Sacramaniacs, because we didn't consider them a threat. But of course, when you move on any white individual, we already know what the repercussions. They're all going to jump. So from there, it just became a whole situation to where, like, the guards that set the homies up, they pulled out 3 homies and brought them into the cafeteria, and there was 50 white boys in there.
I got a little thing too, man, is we were dealing with one of those little groups in San Quentin, and one of the regular, just normal white boy Woods got at us, and he's like, hey, man, we'd appreciate it if, you guys kept that, strictly between you and that group. We're not backing up what they got going on. They're pushing some kind of agenda, and there's only 15, 17 of them. versus 400 or 500 white dudes that just don't agree, and we're not going to involve ourselves, man. So if there's something that jumps off, man, they basically asked us to keep it localized, man. And if, we agreed, on the stipulation that as long as no other, person, that don't got that shaved head, that, we know who they are. As long as they don't get involved, we're not going to make it an all out, northern versus white thing. It doesn't even have to be like that.
Yeah. So, that's a couple of the experiences that I had, as far as with the whites. And there was also times to where, like, I've been around a lot of AB cats. I've been around Pirate, Whitey, but like I said, Buzzard, a couple of NLR cats. I've been around Loki from Santa Rosa, Marcus from Cocoa County. These were all cool dudes. It was all respectful, man. And I also was around that AB member Tank, and I tripped out when I met Tank, because when he came in through Stan Quentin to the whole whites program just totally changed, man, just by his presence there. Yeah. And he used to talk to a couple of the Garnados. And when I tripped, man, here's this AB member, and he's talking in Spanish. Yeah. And what I come to learn is that this guy made $1 million off the stock market when he was up in the Bay.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying? So he was doing it.
Yeah, the thing with them ABs, man, is they're really educated. You know what I mean? They don't just take in killers, man. Their killers have to be intelligent too. They're not going to have no dumb people. It's just going to be like any one of the Latino ones. You know what I mean? They're no different. They're with the business, and a way to put how much of the business they're with in perspective is there is not a lot of ABs in California, and there's thousands of whites, and they still have a pretty good handle on that whole group. I mean, all the groups, all the different divisions of white dudes. You know what I mean? So people think they're getting short, you know what I mean? And their numbers are smaller. I mean, they could have done mass recruiting the last few years. Who knows now that they're out on them lines and stuff. But as far as actual brand members, when I was around, there wasn't many, man. There'd be like 1 or 2 per building in Pelican Bay versus, there'd be 6, 7 of us, and probably, the same or more for the MA, but man, they're with the business, man. There ain't nothing, I can't say nothing bad about them, except, during times we don't get along. But as far as on that gangsterism, they're on it.
Yeah, pretty much all these organizations were, all these little cliques, you're going to have individuals with the business, whether it be AB, NLR, BGF, Kumi Cats, Crips, Bloods. Yep. They're all with the business in different ways. It just depends on who's there. And that's the relationship that we're going to have. Like I said, there's been times where I've been around Woods too. Like, don't get me wrong. There was times where I met a lot of cool, solid Woods that would tell me, like, I'm not with all this, I grew up with you guys out there in the streets, and sometimes they would even give us information, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
About the Sudanos, or like they would refer to Sudanos in a derogatory term. It's because they grew up with homies. And that's the bad thing about some of them that were from up north, as far as in the Bay Area. The white population, as far as within the inner city streets and stuff, is a little bit different than like Butte County or down south. A lot of these guys, they end up doing business with homies. Yeah. They end up kicking it with homies. It'd be common that I'd see a Wood get out to the streets, and I would associate with it. I did a lot of business with them out there because, I had resources they didn't have, and they could plug in or tap into an area that could be beneficial and lucrative for me, because they're not going to have the same plugs or resources that I have. So I always looked at it as I can make money off these individuals as well.
Yeah, back in the 90s, they were the ones that had the, that go fast stuff that, everybody liked so much. It wasn't coming in from south of the border so much, so we had that relationship with them even before my NF days, just to be able to get our hands on that product, because up until 90 or 96, 97, that stuff was coming. A lot of it was coming from my county. Contra Costa County was, man, they were cooking batches. So it all depends on politics, where you're at, who's there, what's happened recently. But we have a lot more to discuss about them. We got the AB and the federal system. Then there's the ABOT, the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, man. And we'll go ahead and get into that, man. We got a couple more episodes of talking about this relationship, or lack thereof, in the future.
The interesting thing about them, right? You just touched on the key point, is their chain of command structure is almost similar to us. You know what I'm saying? As far as they have their commission. And the one thing I want to point out, without going on too long, is that somehow the AB federal system and state system has been able to make it work, whereas the NF hasn't. All right, subscribers, please Please have a good one out there. It's your boy Flacco, and I'm out.
Hey, it's Rojo. Have a good day, y'all.